Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Legacy Liftoff podcast by Drone Adair. I am pretty jacked up today. I have one of I call him one of the man of the people, right?
Uh-oh.
Between either drone pilots and if you've ever been on any Facebook group, I feel like you've probably heard of this guy, right? He's the owner of Moss Photography, the VP of the DSPA, Vic Moss. Vic, thanks for being here today.
Well, thanks for the invite. These are always
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time. And I joke obviously about the Facebook, but still, I
It seems like it. It really
even so,
does.
yeah, I feel like you have to have top contributor on most groups from
Probably.
taking care of people that may not know what is going on or helping us understand kind of what is going on in the industry, which I think is probably most notably these days what you might be known for in some cases. But I won't get into that all right now. I want to kind of start because this whole podcast is about you and your story and how ultimately you got into the industry. I know you went to school at what Art Institute.
Art Institute of Colorado. At the
Okay,
time, it was called the Colorado Institute of Art. I actually have
nice.
a degree in photography. I like
Okay.
it's fun because at the time I could tell people where'd you learn photography? I learned photography at the CIA. So
Nice.
the Colorado Institute of Art, not the actual
Yeah.
CIA people. But yeah, it was fun. It's kind of
Did,
an inside joke in the school.
did they change that acronym afterwards when people
Yeah, it
started
became the Art
realizing?
Institute of Colorado. So
Like we gotta stop getting this confused with it. Nice. Well, and I know obviously coming from that world, that was kind
mhm.
of how you started, right? I mean, obviously photography. I don't know when you graduated, and you don't need to name a year,
Oh, I
but
don't
we
care.
probably, drones are relatively new, right? And
Hmm.
not relatively, but I mean to us, still
Yeah,
still technically in a
sure.
somewhat of an infancy stage,
Mm-hmm.
but I think photography was kind of that first real, aside from the
Mm-hmm.
military, I'll say that first real application of where people picked up a drone and started to say, "Hey, this is pretty cool," and what a tool, right? So I guess
Mm-hmm.
what was that your first real inside into the drone industry
Into the
was it through
drones.
the photography side?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't mind saying I graduated from the CIA in 1988. I've been doing this a very long time, 35 years this year actually.
Awesome.
But
Congrats.
yeah, I started. Oh, thank you. It's fun. I have a very understanding wife, which is also why I get to spend a lot of time on Facebook. Very understanding wife.
Love it.
But yeah, I started seeing drones, I guess, in 2013. Actually, 2012. I take that back. I saw the first little inklings of drones, the old Phantom ones,
Yeah.
um, and I thought, yeah, those are kind of cool. And then the Phantom 2 came out with the GoPro. And I thought, okay, GoPro's a decent camera because to me, it's always been about the camera,
Right.
as a photographer. And it's like, okay, I think I want to try this. I want to try this. So I got the old P2. I got a couple of them, and got the H3. I can't even remember the gimbal now. The three-way
Oh, right.
gimbal with the GoPros, and I modified some GoPros, so I had a medium and a long lens GoPro, and reached out to a client and said, hey, what do you think? They've been using a manned aviator. He'd been flying their projects. I'm giving them like 4 shots for $250. Flying their airplane around. It's like, can I do some stuff for you and see if it works? And it did. So I always like to joke and tell people that, yeah, to me, it's always the flying camera, always has been. It's morphed a little bit, obviously, since then. But if
Right.
you've talked to me, if anybody's talked to me at all, they've heard me say this 1,000 times. But to me, it's always basically the drone is just the world's most tallest and versatile tripod. You can get up there to 400 feet or higher, and just park it.
Yeah.
I get 2-3 second exposures that are tack sharp these days with my drones.
Yeah.
So it's a great tool. It's pushed me into it's pushed me into videos. Now I do a lot of video as well. It's just a lot of fun.
Awesome.
It's a kick in the pants. I mean, you get to
Yeah.
fly, things like that there, right there.
Right. Such a cool shot.
And
Yeah.
and that's even an old one. The newer ones are even cooler, but I just haven't printed them yet. But it's just a lot of fun to do what I get to do. I mean,
Yeah.
golly gee, I fly drones. I get
Right.
paid to do this.
I
I
know.
get paid for it.
I love it. Isn't it great? I
Mm-hmm.
tell my wife too, I'm completely unemployable for the rest of my life. So,
I'd have to go flip burgers at McDonald's maybe if I got some training.
man, I couldn't do it. I have to, we're making this work no matter what. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I don't
but
have a choice anymore.
yeah, exactly. We're deep in, but I feel like you know what? Technology too has come so long. I remember those days too. Like you couldn't even see the video you were recording,
Nope.
or the
No.
photos you were taking. You bring it down, it's like, dang, that looks nice, or it's like, wow, that was
Oops. Put it
not
back up.
great. I have 70% of the sky showing, and 30% of what my actual subject. But I think it is really where it started in a lot of ways, but it's evolved in a lot too. And I think from our standpoint in the industry, technology is obviously moving a little bit faster
A
than the
little bit.
regulation side as well, right?
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, and I think and I don't want to harp too much on it, but I think there's a lot of ways that you're a great advocate for the industry, and that's why in the beginning, that intro, I truly believe it, right? You're kind of, I feel like, in a lot of ways, the voice for in between from the drone pilots to policy in some regards,
Well,
right? And
it's fun. Yeah, I like to do that. It's fun. And actually, for those of you who are listening, don't know that we've had to move this interview around a couple times,
yeah,
because literally just before this, I was talking on the phone with a legislator from Missouri. There's a drone bill that's going to be putting it into. It's going to be put forth next month during session, and there's a drone pilot. I won't use his name because I didn't ask. That's really done a lot of legwork in Missouri and done a lot of organizing, and he hooked me up with another legislator that does not like this bill.
yeah,
And so we were able to spend some time talking to him, and I was telling him what was wrong with it, and how really it just can't even be amended. It's just got to die in committee.
yeah,
So yeah, it's a lot of fun, whether it's Missouri or hanging out in Marco Rubio's office in D.C., which was not a pleasant experience, or
yeah,
just dealing with city council people. They all no, I'm not going to say they all. Most of them just want to know, just want to
yeah.
learn. Some of them already have their minds up, and they don't want to be, or their minds up, and they don't want to be confused with the facts. But for the most part, they're almost always reasonable people.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, and you obviously would know a little bit more than me, but I think from a viewpoint of, being in the industry, a drone pilot, flying, a lot of regulation stuff's coming up. Depending on where you're flying, it's different, right? Me being in Milwaukee versus flying in, downtown Denver or certain things even like that, right? It's completely different.
Uh-huh.
There's different laws that you have to kind of know about as you're traveling or as you're flying. So, standpoint too, there is needs to be that voice, because a lot of times legislators don't have the knowledge or the experience of flying in remote areas or urban areas or
Urban areas, yeah.
wherever. Right, exactly. And we don't necessarily have the ability for each side in some cases to know exactly what's going on. So I think a lot of people appreciate you bringing it down to layman's terms in some cases in those groups, and really showcasing that. So it's great.
I appreciate that. Well, I'm not a lawyer. I always have to
Right.
say that. I have an art degree. You're getting legislative suggestions from somebody with an art degree. So, I never really thought of it until you said this, but I have to put it in layman's terms because I'm a layman.
Yeah, right.
I have to understand it first. And if you start throwing big words at me, it's like, that's not going to happen. Talk to
Yeah.
me like I'm four, so
But
that's
I
just
think
how
that's
I need to understand it. So that's
yeah,
how I can explain it to other people.
which is great though, because you're making it real, right? You're making it a little bit more digestible to people. Whereas,
Mm.
in the aviation, the FAA world, there's a lot of numbers and letters and
Acronyms.
acronyms and everything else that you can get caught of your head spinning around and around to try to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what they are. But bringing it down to kind of that way me and you just talk, or
Yep.
the way we
Yep.
just communicate in a very personable way, is probably why so many people applaud the way you kind of get out there and do it. So
Well, there are a number of us that do that. So I will say
yeah,
I'm not the only one.
absolutely,
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah. So
And I'm just talking to you today,
oh,
but
I get it. No, I
there
get
are
it. I
so
get it.
many of them, and I do know that obviously we have a ton of people in the industry that are
Yeah,
doing
Kenji and Dave
amazing
Messina
things.
and Greg Riverdio, and there's
Yeah,
so many people out there that do so much work for us, and
absolutely.
that's just a small
Just the
list.
tip of the iceberg, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do want, I think it's a good segue into kind of like how, for one, you've been doing drone Moss photography, right? Drone photography now for quite some time.
Yeah, 1988.
1988. Well, not I guess soon after that, somewhere in there. picked it up. But I would love to talk a little bit more too about how the DSPA came about and
Oh, sure.
how you and Kenji and kind of came up with this idea and how that relationship started and kind of what your goals are or where you
Hmm.
guys have really worked on, I guess, to close out this year and kind of thoughts going forward on how you can continuously push that forward,
Sure.
and how people can help you as well with that.
Oh, that's we always like help. Always. You can pay attention to your local legislators. That's a great way to help.
Yeah, it's a good
In
start.
Missouri, I wish I could say the guy's name. I should have asked because I was literally just on the phone with him 15
We can
minutes
put it
ago.
in the show notes if you ask for
There
permission
you go.
after
There you go.
that.
But he's a great guy. He's from Missouri. He's in Texas right now, but he's reached out to all these legislators to say, "Hey, you can't do this." But how did DSPA come about? I guess a little bit of a backstory is how I ended up getting into the legislative side of things or the advocacy side of things. I don't want to be a legislator. I'd be horrible at it because I tell everybody the truth.
Right.
But here in Denver, I guess it was been 2000, I want to say 15 probably. Colorado started doing some, like a lot of the other states, like, hey, drones, ooh, let's create legislation. So I went to what was called the Colorado Aerial Media Pros meeting. It's a meetup group. And I walked in there and said, hey, I'm Vic Moss, who's working with the legislature. All this stuff's coming down, and nobody raised their hand. So I sort of left that meeting as kind of the de facto legislative liaison for the local industry. And it kind of blossomed from there. Did some state work, now doing some national work. I was part of another drone school for a while, and that helped out quite a bit. Left that. And when I left that, Kenji Sugahara reached out to me. It was literally right after I left that particular organization.
Timing is
And
everything, right?
pardon?
Timing is everything, right?
Timing is everything.
It is.
And it's like, hey, what do you feel about this? And he kind of explained what you wanted to do. And I said, no, I just finished up another time suck and I don't want another one. And so he called me a couple more times, and a couple weeks later I said, okay, let's do it. And so we sat down, we tried to figure out what it was and what are we going to name ourselves and what are we going to do and who are we going to be. And so we came up with Drone Service Provider Alliance, or DSPA. And so we did that. We got it. We started out kind of slow. Probably just took us about 6 months to get organized because we both have full-time jobs. At the time, Kenji was doing a lot of video work with drones, and I'm obviously doing what I'm doing. And so we just did this. And one of the main reasons I kept saying no is just like, I don't want to deal with it. He goes, you're already dealing with it. You're doing this stuff all the time anyway. And oh, by the way, if we do this organization, we are a 501c6 registered here in Colorado. People can pay dues, and we can use that to cover our expenses when we do things like go to the Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee. We're also on the drone safety team now. Whether we go to Commercial UAV Expo, Exponential was here in Denver last year, so that was kind of nice. I still ended up with a hotel downtown though because of the timing involved. My wife goes, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, sorry." And so that's what we do. We did this. We put the name out. We try and get some articles. I wrote an article today and put it up about the whole DJI RID DOC. Speaking of acronyms,
right?
About the fiasco with the declaration of compliance issues. And we just kind of put it out there. We've got some people on our board. We've got Amy Wagum. We've got Sharon Rossmart from Women in Drones, and then Dave Messina from FPV Freedom Coalition. Oh, and I think, he just announced he's now, who's he with now? Dave Messina. It's one of the other FPV groups, and my brain just left me. Darn it! Sorry, Dave, if you watch this, sorry. But he works with it. And Dave does a lot of work too with the at the time the Drone Advisory Committee. So it's just pulling all these people in, and let's see what we can do, because there just was no single voice for the commercial drone pilot here in the States. There was one organization, learn how to talk. There was one organization that tried. They did a really good try at it, and it just didn't work. And I think it was the timing.
Yeah.
We just weren't quite ready. And then, of course, at this point, too, when we started, Kenji and I had already had an awful lot of industry contacts. So we were able to kind of focus a little bit better than the other group could, just simply because of the contacts we had, and the timing was so much better. We had a lot of things coming down the pipeline. And here we are. Kenji now actually is the director of aviation for the state of Oregon, so he's really busy. So I've been doing the lion's share of the work at DSPA, which I don't mind. He definitely chimes in and helps out. And then I've been busy this summer, so we're not quite as, we don't put out as much content as we like, but we do an awful lot of stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, is right, is a lot of times people don't see what is all going into it, right? I mean, to start a business in general takes a lot of work, right? But when you have another full-time business and now you're also creating this 501c8, right, that you're ultimately being able to, hopefully gather donors and people that believe in what you're doing and ultimately want to help in any way that they can. And, I think there's a lot of value in that, right? But also, in some cases, right, you have, like today, you put out very relevant news, and I shouldn't say in some cases, in most cases, you put out very relevant information that people can grasp and understand, but that they may not know either is coming down the pipeline or are looking for that news source, because as we know, it might take a little bit more time for other organizations to put out that information, right? It's a very sometimes slow process to get to individuals that are in the industry. So I guess, and I've seen plenty of the stuff that you've put out there, right? From templates to how you've gotten waivers or authorizations or, different things like that, right? That are very or people that can grab right on your website and understand that if they put in the time and the effort and do things in the right way, that they can all achieve that those things as well. So I do think that it's a very helpful resource.
Well, and I
That we've
appreciate
created.
that, because I think one of the most proud things I've done recently is my Ops Over People waiver. I was able to get it, and I want to thank the FAA for that. Again, I won't mention who, but he saw me flying here in Denver at the Exponential, and he said, "Hey, why don't you apply for a waiver with that drone and that particular, the prop cages?" And so, me being stupid, said, "Well, it's over 250 grams." It's like, that's why you have to apply for a waiver. So,
That's the point,
so
right?
he goes, give me a good safety mitigation case, and I'll go ahead and do that for you. So let me know when you send it in. If you've got a good safety case, it's yours. So I did that. We put some work into it. I had a little bit of time. I had to do things. When we had Expo here, we had literally a record rain. We had 3 inches of rain in
Really?
one day here in Colorado. And I woke up the next morning to a flooded basement. So everything
And
got
what
put on
timing?
hold, including the waiver. But once it was going, we had a couple of back and forth, so I had to change some math. And he goes, "Okay, there you go." So we went ahead and first we did it to we gave this waiver information to our members. We had a member only webinar, and then we gave it to Pilot Institute members only, because Pilot Institute's a very big supporter. Greg's a big supporter of DSPA. He's an awesome cat. And we did one other thing. We did women and drones. I think I did another one. But anyway, so then we went ahead and said, "Okay, here you go, world." Bleh.
Yeah.
And I went ahead and put out the reservation, or the application aspect, put out the video. I did have to change things up a little bit. I got a phone call 2 weeks ago from my FAA contact and waiver office, and said, "Vic, take everything down, please."
Because it's
Because in
changed,
my
or because
attempt to make it easier for everybody, including the FAA waiver office, I made it more difficult. I included all the math I had in the kinetic energy transference formulas, and he goes, "We don't care. We have that
yeah.
information. You gave it to us. What we want from you is a 380 gram limit and a good safety mitigation case. So tell your people to please make it easier." And so, again, I've done this before. So FAA waiver office, I apologize. It was not the intent of my waiver. But so it was great. And I think it's been downloaded now 300 times, the video
That's
and the
great.
packet.
Yeah.
So if everybody applies, that's 300 waivers, in which case the information they can glean, the FAA can glean from those waivers, the monthly reports, can help change the Ops Over People language in the
Yeah.
regulations. So that's the goal, like what we did with the 10729 daylight operation waivers. They're gone, because we
Right.
did them and we used them, and the FAA said, "Hey, you guys can fly safe at night. You don't need this
Yeah.
anymore." So hopefully
Right.
we can bump up. I'd like to see 500 grams. I think a kilogram's too heavy, but I'd like to see a 500 gram limit at some point for Ops Over People.
Yeah, I
Me
mean, I think
personally,
there's a great case for it, right? I
hmm
mean, and if there
not
is,
cages, blah blah blah. But yeah, I
right,
think 500
yeah,
grams is great.
yeah, you have the safety precautions and
hmm
everything in place that you need to make that doable. I think it's a great,
And we have the safety record of drones. I mean, drones are the
right?
safest form of aviation out there. The next
Yeah,
person that's killed by a civilian drone will be the first person killed by a civilian drone.
right,
Um, that doesn't mean they're perfectly safe. There's no such thing. I mean, I could walk out my front door and get hit by a meteorite. Hopefully not. But
right.
it's nothing's guaranteed.
Hopefully
Yeah,
not.
fingers crossed. Listen out. I don't hear one. Good, go.
Yeah, no,
But
right.
they're so safe. They're so safe, and they work so well.
Yeah,
I think the technology, most of the manufacturers have gotten to the point where they put out a beautiful product for a beautiful price that
yeah,
puts out a beautiful image and data too.
right,
I mean, obviously data collection. Yeah,
for sure.
so it's safe.
Yeah, right. It is, and I think that's the biggest thing is too is you see it's a good lesson to learn is that if you are in the industry and you are doing things the way we should be, right,
Yeah,
safely and
key
getting
there.
your like people flying over these professional football stadiums
Over the
and
Washington
other
Monument.
areas. That was that yesterday? I
That
literally
was
saw
Saturday.
that was an FPV drone,
That
right?
was an FPV drone by a Canadian. I will not use his
Oh
name because I don't want to
my
give him credit. But
goodness,
he
that is.
does this kind of stuff a lot. He's already been supposedly, again, this is what somebody told me. So
Mhm.
he's been fined by the CAA. If you go on his webpage or his Facebook page, he's done the same thing in Las Vegas at the Sphere, which the Sphere
Mm.
is in a zero grid.
Yeah,
Las Vegas is very generous. The Las Vegas airport is very generous with Lance approvals. We have flown there.
absolutely. Yeah,
A number of people have flown very legally at the Sphere, including myself and Kenji. I flew Bellagio Fountain when we were there for ComUAV.
yeah.
But
I saw you the day
it's the people that
before.
do stupid.
Yeah, right. And that's the problem. I think is that so many people do see the those main things, right, that go
hmm
wrong, or those big events like a
hmm
NFL football game getting stopped not once,
Not twice.
multiple
Yep.
times in that game. It got
Yep.
stopped because this drone operator was
Stupid.
obviously flying ridiculously stupid, right,
Yep.
over the
Yep.
stadium. And we don't want that.
No, we
Obviously,
don't want that.
we don't want that image. We don't want people to think that you know every drone pilot is a breaker of the law and
hmm
they're used for bad things and whatnot. So
And
I
what's
think
awesome about situations like this, whether it's the guy in Philadelphia, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's Boston, that happened in at the Boston baseball
Mariners
team.
or the Red Sox, yeah,
Yeah, Sox. Sorry, it's like blank. My son even lives in Boston. I totally blanked it. Or if it's the Washington Monument, the community comes together and says
yeah,
this can't happen.
right,
The vast majority. I did have somebody really mad at me when I did say I told the FAA about this guy, which is a funny story. But the community comes together and says we cannot let this happen. The people that do this kind of stuff need to be punished, and they need to be punished publicly. Not not like, oh, let's send them in jail or put them in the blocks or whatever
right,
they used to use in medieval times. But the first time I saw the video of the guy flying the monument was yesterday. No, today's Monday. Saturday.
I saw you
I was at a drone
yesterday.
event, and the FAA was there and the cops were there. It was a high school drone event, Westminster PD and Westminster High School here in Colorado. And I'm sitting there talking to a couple of FAA folks, including a special investigator. And I got this thing on my phone. I went, "Oh, cool. What's this?" And I looked at it and I went, "Oh." And so I showed it to them.
Yep,
They
nice.
were not
What did they
happy.
say? Yeah,
They were not happy, and that's as far as I'll go with that.
yeah,
But it's just kind of funny the timing of things. But the communities have come together and said, no, this can't happen.
right,
You've got your outliers to say, oh, what are you, a drone cop? It's like, no,
yeah,
but they come together and don't want this, and the FAA loves to see that. The FAA says, look, this is not standard operating procedure for the drone community. This is the drone community coming together and say that people can't do this.
hmm,
Someone's going to get hurt. It's illegal. It's dangerous, and it's stupid. And so
absolutely.
the FAA loves to see it when the community comes together for situations like that.
For sure. And then we're always going to have trolls, right?
Oh
And
yeah, always,
people
always,
that are going
always.
to be on that
hmm
are,
hmm
no matter what it is, even if you are flying legally in a certain, if you're at the Sphere, you're at somewhere else that is a very
Washington
highly
D.C., which is where I
regarded.
was last month.
Yeah. And literally, you have done the right steps to make it
hmm
happen, and it's able to be done. you know, and I think I've seen it far too often where, you know, pilots have to explain themselves in a post and just to, or to, if they are doing it legally, right? It's like they're more so being, trying to get in front of it, saying, hey, by the way, this was done legally. We have all the authorizations,
Right.
everything that we need to make this a safe flight. And unfortunately, that's just the way I think it is
Mhm.
right now as an
Mhm.
industry, because too many people believe that everything that is done correctly is not done
Right.
legally, right?
When
So
I have one of my more interesting flights, I always, when I post it somewhere, I'll say, by the way, this is legal. I did the right steps and that kind of thing, which people usually understand I would anyway, but there's always those people that, what are you doing?
yeah, well, and that and again, it's probably ignorance in a lot
It's
of ways.
ignorance, and a lot of the people who really get mad about that just don't understand. They're trying to protect the industry, so I really don't blame them too much. But when they start arguing with people about it, it's like, no, look, come on, come on, come on, come on,
Yeah.
come on.
Right. I mean, I had a client the other day that just reached out and was like, "Hey, we need to fly this location tomorrow." And I'm like, "Did you look at the address? It's literally sitting right on the edge of the runway." I'm like, "This is not possible for tomorrow." First of all, I will get back to you with a date that I can actually fly. But you know, it again, it's probably people that either a from a pilot perspective don't know, or
Mm-hmm.
really, I think a lot of it comes down to the clients pushing for it,
Right,
right?
right.
Because they don't know the regulations and the laws. Sometimes they don't
That,
even know
why
that
should they?
airspace is restricted,
Right.
right? They
That's
shouldn't,
why they
but
should hire the correct pilots for this kind of stuff.
exactly.
And we as pilots, then remote pilots. I know man pilots hate it when you say that.
Yeah,
Remote
yeah,
pilots. um, they it's up to us to really say, look, we can't do that.
yeah,
You know, it's against the law. So,
yeah,
and that's why
yeah,
you hire
and
the right ones. Yeah.
exactly. And at the end of the day, you know, they'll figure it out. And if they don't, they'll something will happen eventually. But we have to manage the rules, not the
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
exceptions, right? And ultimately plan for the exceptions
Right.
because they're out there, but advocate for them to realize that they can't be done. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And almost anything can be flown anywhere. Almost. It just takes the right it takes the right steps. It takes the right permissions.
yeah,
I've flown everywhere from literally on 35 right at DIA to Mesa Verde National Park to a block and a half off the Washington Monument. And
yeah,
others have as well. This isn't, hey, look how great Vic is. It's just people have done very similar stuff. Sparky Sorensen flies out at Dallas all the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
And so people can do this stuff. It doesn't take somebody who is known. It's just you have to know how to do the right steps. It helps if you're known to the entity you're flying for.
for
Now,
sure.
if I went to Milwaukee Airport, they don't know me from Adam. They're
Yeah,
not going to give me any special permissions. But if I go to
yep,
DIA, they do know me from Adam, and I can probably do
yep,
things other people can't. But that's just because I've worked with them before. There's other pilots in Denver that have worked with them before, or Centennial, and they're allowed to do things others aren't
yep,
because you're a known entity and you're a known safe entity.
exactly.
Conversely, if you're a known unsafe entity, you're not going to get to do
Right.
anything.
Yeah, you're not getting any of that, and then you gotta
Exactly.
restart or contact someone that is.
Mm-hmm.
Probably
Mm-hmm.
not at that point. Probably they're doing it illegally. But I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like, you know, even for us too, is like here at Waukesha, you know, we have Waukesha, we have Milwaukee, we have a bunch of local
Mm-hmm.
airports that we can get things done very fast
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately they know that we fly a lot and it's
Exactly.
safely. So yeah, it's always nice. And I guess that's a question too I would even have, because so many times when it's changed obviously a lot in the last say 3 to 5 years of reaching out to, you know, ATC and other,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people at the airport in coordination with some of these things since Lance has come about and whatnot.
That's a
You know, I
huge help.
know, yeah, a big time. And I think, you know, I in the used to be able to ultimately you had to contact
Mm-hmm.
ATC. Now if you go on a loft or any of these other, you it says don't, you know,
Do
it
not.
might
Do
hinder
not.
you doing it. And I think that's where relationships in the past that you maybe have
Bingo.
built up have will help you going forward. It's not saying don't contact them at all, right? Still develop that relationship, but if you have a
Develop that
waiver
relationship.
or if you have an
Yeah. Yep.
authorization,
Yep.
Don't contact and be like, hey, I need this pushed through tomorrow.
Come on, no.
Right? Yeah.
I will say though that a lot of people ask me, well, what do I do when I need to fly in a zero grid, or I need to fly 500 or 400 feet in a 100-foot grid? Um, Reach out to ATC managers. A lot of times they'll just say, you don't say, hey, can I fly there? You say, look, this is what I need to do. This is when I need to do it. What kind of safety mitigations would you like to see in either LANC authorization, or more specifically, if you're going to fly in something like that, a drone zone airspace authorization?
Yep.
And just say, hey, can I tell you when I submit it? They would appreciate that most of the time. Sometimes I'm not talking to you, which I get. They're getting less and less and less. I think ATC managers are realizing that, hey, we're here. We are outnumbered. We outnumber manned aviation now, and they do have to deal with us. And most of them are really cool about it. They really are. It's happening less and less now. But yeah, call them up and say, this is what I need to do. I'm a remote pilot, and what kind of safety mitigations? Yeah, definitely start the conversation like, I'm not asking for permission.
Yeah.
Not asking for permission right now. And just tell them what you need to do and when you need to do it and what kind of safety mitigations. And you could also say something like, well, if you're not going to deny it, if you're going to totally deny it, you don't want me there, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. So you can be congenial and you can be nice and see where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask questions, right? And figure out ultimately if it's completely out of the question or if it's possible to do it. And we have a Wisconsin drone group, on Instagram that we have, and someone had reached out and really was like, they didn't know how even drone zone existed and how that process worked, or so it ultimately that is where I'm not as public on the groups as you may be. I try to tend to stray away in certain cases in that way, but I think when you are helping just educate in that, the process is relatively easy once you do it. It's just people comfortable getting down to actually doing it, and then realizing that it can be done. So,
and you brought up a good point with a guy who didn't even know about it. That has been, I've been on a couple of FAA committees where we're trying to figure out how to educate people. It's tough. FAA has been dealing with traditionally in manned aviation for decades. And it's always easy. Hey, new rule, you put it at the airport, because everybody flies at the airport. They don't fly out of their front yard. Well, some do, but that's the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And so you've got that touch point. Every single time somebody goes in and files a flight plan, they've got that touch point. You have a credit card in half hour, you can be in the air. Pop down to Best Buy. And so where do you touch those drone pilots where they can actually learn the rules? And that's tough. That's really tough for the FAA. It's tough for the industry. So if anybody out there who sees this has an idea, uashelp@faa.gov. They would love to hear from you. Or email me. If you can't find my email address, you don't know how to use the internet. But
we'll put it in the show notes.
Put it in the show notes. There you go. Vic@DSPAlliance.org. But it's a constant battle to get the education part out there, which is why we did things like what we did at Westminster High School on Saturday.
Yeah, and those local things may seem, local.
and that's fine. If everybody had a local group,
it doesn't matter. Exactly, right? If everyone had one, that it would get out a lot faster and a lot easier. I've done, local things at local airports with people that were interested in aviation, to just let them know about it.
And you can do it wherever. We had the I'm on AVSA Rocky Mountain Board, and we had our holiday party yesterday. And the waitress that helped us, which if you're ever in Denver and you want to go indoor putt-putt, go to Holy Moly downtown. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Little plug there. But she knew we were a drone group, and she wanted to buy a drone. And so we talked about drones. And I told her about trust. I told her about this. I told her about that, and others too. There were others there talking about other people about this, and perfect opportunity to talk about drones.
Yeah,
and us drone pilots, you get us talking, we won't show.
Yeah, we'll start. We'll let you know what's going on. I always love the question too. It's like, what do you do? You fly drones? Oh, you take pictures. It's like, yes, but I'm not. Well, you want how much you want to talk? Well, you got a half hour. You got an hour. What do we got?
Yeah, your 5 minute, your 50 minute, your 5 hour elevator pitch.
Yeah, exactly. I do. Now that you brought it up, though, like I don't know, maybe it's a dumb idea, but it's an idea that I don't know. I'm sure it's been discussed, but from a manufacturer's side, right? Like, what about educating pilots as soon as they plug in the drone? Like they can't fly this drone until they get a little bit of education on the laws and the regulations. I know from a manufacturing standpoint, it's probably tough because the first thing they
You got
want
to
you
have
to do is
buy-in.
get that drone in right
Yep.
the air. And obviously, we have one main, very large majority stake player in the industry that is, from a manufacturer standpoint, with DJI. I just feel like everything that they, as soon as, like you said, they can plug in and start flying in a matter of a few minutes. Like, quite
Right.
honestly, if they bypass everything. So
Excuse me.
I don't know if you have to have buy-in, but it's something that, even just given a little intro video that they can't skip, or something that it's like, hey, quick little lesson on airspace, and
Well,
like,
if you look at and I haven't done it. I've been flying DJI for 10 years, but every once in a while I did remember seeing where it would come up when you first register. You have a little thing you have to go through. I don't know if they still do that or not. It was actually, there is another drone school. Actually, I'll just say it. Pilot Institute. Greg talked to another manufacturer and said, "Look, if you're going to ship units to the United States, we will pay for a little card to stick in there and give it to you for free, and you can put it in your thing." And they're like, "What's in it for us?"
yeah,
So manufacturer buy-in is tough. And this has been, and the reason I know this has been discussed. Trust me.
yeah, no, and I figured
A
it
few
was.
times.
I
But
knew I wasn't
oh
the
yeah,
first one to
yeah,
ask it
and the
or think
technology
about it.
there. It's like, okay, so let's say we do get manufacturer buy-in. How's it going to work?
Yeah,
How's it going to be hooked up? I mean, do you have to put your trust certificate number in? Okay, well, how are you going to make sure that's the right trust certificate? Well, you have to have a license. Well, what if it's a grandson buying it for their grandmother, or the other way around?
yeah.
Because we want both grandmothers and grandsons to fly together. How does that work? There's all these great ideas like yours. It's not a bad idea, but how?
Yeah.
How is that very, very large 3-letter word?
Well, and that's the $1 million question, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really how we get that. There's probably, people out there smarter than me and you
Oh,
that
definitely
might have
smarter than
some
me.
ideas. Yeah, me too, right? I just bring in that idea just because
It's a great
I had
idea.
just thought of it, but I'm sure it's been talked about and discussed. But
It is. It's talked about. It's
um,
tough. It's if people are. I mean, the FAA is flummoxed, and so are we've got the FAA Safety Team Drone Pros. Which, if you're interested about that, reach out to me. Um, it, all we can do is try. We have our
yeah,
Denver Drone Pilot Social Hour, and you said you've got your group. Just form local drone groups and have one person there that knows what's going on, and you can meet a lot of people that way. Be a
yep,
drone. I always like to say, if you're in the air, you've got your drone ambassador hat on. You're gonna have people come up and talk to you. Tell them about trust. Tell them, first of all, you say, "Can I land first?" And then you start talking
right.
to them. And that we're always out there in the public when we're flying, and it's a great opportunity to educate people about drones.
Absolutely. Well, Vic, I don't want to harp on any too much more debates on what we've probably probably is
No, no,
already out there in
no, that's
discussion.
okay. I'll debate.
Um,
I'll debate.
I think that, hearing your story and hearing where you've kind of developed into, like I said, this man of the people, this voice of the drone pilots out there in some sort of way.
Awesome.
I think it's great, but I'd love to hear you once. What's on the horizon for you? What do you
Wow.
think? I know we're recording this early December, but it'll
Mm-hmm.
come out late December, early January. So what can the people kind of look out for you in 24,
Oh,
and what you're
golly.
working on? I don't want to
Well,
put you too
we're
much on the
working on more waivers. Um, I have my latest waiver is actually a 2-mile BV loss waiver that's in. So if we get that, which I think I will, there may be some back and forth. My application is 10 pages long. So I actually had to attach a PDF to my application. I couldn't put it all in a little box in the drone zone.
right.
So there's that coming down the pipe. We're looking at I've done one, and we want to start a little 10-minute video content thing for our YouTube page, Drone Service Provider Alliance. And we're titling it "Let Me Show You Something." We sort of stole Josh Bardwell's "You're Going to Learn Something." So sorry,
Nice.
Josh.
Well, he's
Let me
done
show you
well with it.
something. He has done very well with it, and he knows his stuff. I tell him he knows more about FPV than he's forgotten more about FPV than I'll ever know. You do not want me to fly any of your FPV rigs in manual, because you will not get it back in one piece. Um, And so we're going to try and do that, and we're just keeping an eye on what's going to happen with this next session. We've got AUVSI Drone Prepared, which is to help states or help drone pilots kind of get their state to do state preemption, which means the states are the ones that are allowed to do the drone laws, not all these little cities and states. And so we have one big fight 50 times instead of 500 little fights. And that's, I think, in 16 or 17 states now. They do have a state preemption. We're trying real hard to fight the anti-China legislation that we've got going on, country of origin ban. It's needless legislation that's actually going to end up costing the lives of Americans. I do not have a problem saying that. I mean, I have a problem having to say it, but I don't have a problem saying it.
Absolutely.
We there's no evidence there to support that, so we're going to push that out real hard. We're going to try and fight that where we can, which was the whole Marco Rubio office issue I had. And just kind of status quo, pushing along. We'll be at Commercial UAV Expo in Vegas in September, and I'll be in Exponential in April. San Diego. I was actually looking at flight schedules and hotels. Holy crud, are hotels expensive in California? I thought they were bad here.
Yeah, I was looking at that myself. I think we should all kind of team up and get an Airbnb or something.
That's not a bad idea.
This is there's quite a bit. San Diego's a little bit of a difference than some of these other places, right? But
that's why we should always have it here in Denver. Hotels are so much less expensive, especially for me. But
for you too, right?
It's a lot easier. But I still, like I said, I had to have a hotel that night for like 2 nights.
Yeah.
But again, that's why we have DSPA. Kenji and I do not take all the stuff we do. We don't get paid for it. I don't take any money from DSPA, or we don't take any money from DSPA to pay ourselves. It's all strictly what our travel expenses and what it takes to run. We have pins, so I bring pins with me and give pins out and stickers and stuff like that. I can't really see any stickers back there on my workbench, but so that's what we do at DSPA. Would I like to get paid for what I do? Absolutely, because then I love what I'm doing. I'd love to get paid for it, but that's, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and I don't think it will. It's just not really. We don't have a membership base really to support that, and what we have now is, we'll always take more, but what we have now is very useful for us and very helpful for us. And we just took over the commercial UAV pilots page on Facebook, so now that's actually a DSPA page. And they put on there by Vic Moss. It's like, I got to get that taken down, because it's
how does that come about?
Amy Wagon set that up, and she's gotten really busy and wanted to know if she just wanted to turn it into, or we want to turn it into a DSPA page. So she just kind of handed over the reins to me and said, have fun. And we've got some great mods in there, and we work hard at it, and we're trying to make sure it stays a professional group.
Yeah, love it. No, I think it's one of the top ones that comes up anytime I see some sort of update or post in there. There's a lot in there as well. So if you're a drone pilot, definitely join the commercial drone pilot page.
Commercial drone pilots. I think that's what we're called. We put a link down below.
Commercial drone pilots. There's so many different variations.
There are so many. It's hilarious.
Again, we'll figure it out. But it's really come together over these years.
Yeah,
so.
Amy put out a wonderful group, and she just kind of, it's like somebody giving you the keys to a Ferrari and say, have fun. And so it's great. It's a lot of fun. Well, maybe not a Ferrari. Let's say a really nice 18-wheeler, because it's pretty big.
Close enough, right?
Close
Eventually,
enough.
Maybe trade up to a Ferrari at some point.
I don't fit in a Ferrari. I'm 6'3". I don't fit.
Well, I'm too short, so I couldn't reach the pedals if that was the case. But
there you go.
Well, Vic, I really appreciate you being on, and if anyone wants to reach out to you, what is your preferred method? I know you mentioned your email.
Email is probably the best. I prefer not to get texts, but if you can't find my phone number, you do not know how to use the internet. But Vic at dspalliance.org. You can reach me that way. You can just go to dspalliance.org. That's a website. We've got our newsroom is probably our biggest use right now. We're trying to, it's just the two of us, just Kenji and I, which I guess I should say too that why I'm the VP is because there's only two of us, and Kenji's already run a nonprofit one, so he's president and I'm vice president, and that's how it works. It's not as exciting as it sounds.
Team, right?
There you go. But yeah, just reach out to me. That's the best way to do it.
Awesome. Yeah, we appreciate you. I appreciate you
Sure, thanks. I
as
appreciate it.
well, being a part of it, and it was great connecting with you again at Commercial UAV. But
Yeah,
we will sure see you, in April.
in April, San Diego.
Yeah, coming quick.
Yep, and it's in a
But,
zero grid. I'm trying to figure out how to get around that.
here we go.
Yep,
Maybe that's a whole nother thing, right?
we'll do something. We'll do something. Remember, the Sphere was in a zero grid, and so's
Yeah.
the Bellagio fountain, and we
Well,
figured out a way around that.
there's quite a few people now that I see flying, inside and around in some cases, but you got to do it right, and that's
Yep,
the thing.
100%.
People are doing it by the book, so just be safe.
Be safe,
And,
exactly.
yeah,
Fly
be
safe.
safe, and exactly. So, Vic, again, appreciate it very
Sure
much.
thing.
And we'll catch up with you soon, I'm sure.
Always.
All right,
Thanks.
everybody, take care.
All right.
And
Bye.
safe
Fly safe.
flying.